Captain Zixtal stood on the command deck of the Zixatherian warship Eternal Vigilance, his forearms instinctively tightening on the navigation rails as the emergency alert flashed across every screen in a violent burst of red. The message was simple, yet it sent ripples of terror through his crew. Emergency alert. Human warship DTECTD in CQ2R7. All vessels ADVISED to maintain minimum safe distance of 2 light minutes. This is not a drill. By the eternal void, Sub-Commander Vextril whispered, her scales shifting to a pale green of anxiety. A human ship. Here. In the quantum research sector. Zixtal understood her fear. It wasn't that humans were aggressive. Quite the contrary. The species had proven itself surprisingly peaceful for one that had developed in a death world. No, the terror that now gripped his crew stemmed from something far more insidious. The human tendency to transform any situation, no matter how routine, into an physics-defying adventure that violated multiple laws of nature. Tactical, give me a full scan of the sector, Zixtal ordered, his secondary hearts already accelerating in anticipation of chaos. Show me everything within a 3 light-minute radius. The holographic display bloomed to life in the center of the command deck, revealing a 3-dimensional map of local space. The human warship appeared as a pulsing red marker, its trajectory marked by a line that seemed to casually ignore several navigational hazards that most species treated with religious respect. Captain, his sensor officer called out, I'm detecting multiple vessels altering course. It appears we're not the only ones who received the warning. Indeed, the display showed a remarkable sight. A Gandorian luxury liner, capable of carrying 10,000 passengers, was executing an emergency turn that would delay its arrival by 3 standard days. 2 Meridian diplomatic shuttles had already engaged their faster-than-light drives, choosing to waste expensive fuel rather than remain in the sector. 3 merchant vessels of varying species were scattering like prey animals before a predator. Sir, the communications officer's voice cracked with stress. I'm picking up a military emergency beacon from Research Station Omega-17. It's a Class 1 emergency, Captain. Zixtal felt his scales ripple with concern. Class 1 meant potential system-wide catastrophe. Under normal circumstances, the Eternal Vigilance would be honor-bound to respond. But with a human warship in the sector. Show me the human vessel's trajectory, he ordered, already knowing what he would see. The tactical display updated, and Zixtal's worst fears were confirmed. The human ship was heading directly for the research station. Of course it was. Humans never could resist rushing headlong into situations that any sensible species would avoid. Sir, shall I plot an intercept course? His navigation officer asked, mandibles clicking with nervous energy. Zixtal considered it for precisely 2.3 seconds before shaking his head. No, plot us a course out of the sector. Maximum safe speed. But sir, Vextril protested, the emergency beacon will only draw the humans in faster, Zixtal finished. And I, for one, have no desire to be caught in whatever reality-bending solution they devise. Remember the Proxima incident. A collective shudder ran through the bridge crew. Everyone had heard about that one. A simple human mining operation that had somehow ended with the creation of a temporary pocket universe and the accidental discovery of 3 new fundamental forces of physics. The cleanup had taken months, and the scientific papers were still being written. New contact. The sensor officer's cry drew everyone's attention back to the tactical display. Multiple vessels at the edge of the sector. Military signatures. Looks like Meridian heavy cruisers, and yes, a Gandorian battle group. They're maintaining position at extreme range. The tactical officer noted. Smart. Close enough to observe, far enough to avoid being drawn in. Zixtal nodded in approval. Standard procedure when humans were involved. Maintain distance, record everything, and prepare to update the protocol manual afterward. He watched as more ships appeared on the display, all taking up similar observation positions. Message from Meridian Command Vessel. The communications officer reported. They're establishing a joint observation network. Request our participation. From a safe distance, of course. Accept the request, Zixtal ordered. But plot us a position at least half a light minute further back than their suggested coordinates. I've seen what happens when human warships get creative. As his crew carried out their orders, Zixtal couldn't help but watch the human vessel's unwavering course toward the research station. Their reputation for turning desperate situations into bizarre victories was legendary. Whatever was about to happen would undoubtedly violate several laws of physics, probably create a new branch of quantum mechanics, and definitely require massive updates to everyone's emergency procedure manuals. Sir, Vextril said quietly, do you ever wonder why they're like this? The humans. Zixtal chittered softly, the Zizextherian equivalent of a rueful laugh. I once asked a human admiral that very question. Know what he told me? He said, because nobody told us it was impossible. Strangest species in the galaxy, if you ask me. The Eternal Vigilance gracefully altered course, taking up its observation position alongside the growing fleet of alien vessels. On the tactical display, the human warship's marker continued its determined path toward the research station, its presence causing ripples of anxiety through every ship in the sector. The show was about to begin, and like everyone else, they would watch from a safe distance. After all, there were only two ways to deal with humans in crisis situations: get well clear or get drawn into their chaos. Zixtal had not survived this long by choosing the latter. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Tenacity, watching the exodus of alien vessels with a mixture of amusement and exasperation. The tactical display showed at least 15 ships executing emergency course corrections, their energy signatures flaring with unnecessary power as they struggled to put distance between themselves and her vessel. They're running away from us again, aren't they? Lieutenant Commander Jack Rivera asked from his position at tactical, not bothering to hide his grin. What's the current safe distance they're maintaining? 2 light minutes and increasing. Lieutenant Emma Santos reported from sensors. The Zizitherian vessel just updated the recommended safety margin to 2.5 light minutes. They're being particularly cautious today. Chen shook her head, her short black hair catching the blue light from the holographic displays. You'd think we were flying around in an antimatter bomb without containment fields. Status of that emergency beacon. The bridge crew's demeanor shifted instantly from amused to professional. Chief Science Officer Dr. Victoria Walsh spoke up from her station, her fingers dancing over holographic controls as she compiled the data. It's bad, Captain. Research Station Omega-17 was conducting experiments with quantum singularity containment. According to these readings, she paused, double-checking her calculations. They'd got a cascading resonance effect in their primary containment field. The quantum fluctuations are increasing exponentially. Show me, Chen ordered, and the main view screen filled with a complex array of data. The numbers were ugly, uglier than anything she'd seen since the Jupiter incident 3 years ago. Those other military vessels, Rivera noted, they're setting up observation positions, long-range sensors, weapons powered down. They're not here to help. They're here to watch. Chen's jaw tightened as she read through the casualty projection scrolling across her screen. The research station itself held over 300 personnel. The nearby colony on Aegis II had a population of 2.1 million. The mining outposts scattered through the system added another 200,000 souls to the potential death toll. Dr. Walsh, what are we looking at for time frame? The science officer's expression was grim. The containment field is degrading at an accelerating rate. At current progression, 3 hours until catastrophic failure. Maybe 4 if we're lucky. And the effect on the system if it fails. Walsh took a deep breath. The quantum singularity will expand uncontrollably. Best case scenario, it swallows the station and stabilizes. Worst case, It creates a cascade effect through subspace that tears apart everything within half a light year. The colony doesn't stand a chance either way. Chen watched as another alien vessel frantically altered course to maintain what they considered a safe distance from the Tenacity. The irony wasn't lost on her. They were more afraid of her ship than the potential system-killing singularity brewing at the research station. "Lieutenant Santos, get me a channel to those observation vessels. Let's see what they know." The response came quickly, though not in the form she expected. Instead of tactical data or situation reports, they received a stream of mathematical proofs and probability calculations. Each one reached the same conclusion. The situation was beyond salvation. The numbers showed the optimal approach was to evacuate what they could and accept the remaining casualties as statistically inevitable. "They've already written it off," Rivera said quietly. "They're not even going to try." Chen's expression hardened. "Dr. Walsh, what's the minimum safe distance for quantum containment operations?" The science officer blinked. "You can't be serious, Captain. The gravitational stresses alone would." "The minimum safe distance, Doctor." Walsh sighed, knowing that tone. "Theoretically, we'd need to be within 50,000 kilometers to have any effect on the containment field. But Captain, the Tenacity wasn't designed for." "The Tenacity," Chen interrupted, "was designed by humans who knew damn well we'd end up using it for exactly this kind of situation. Mr. Rivera, plot us a course to the station. Lieutenant Santos, begin scanning for survivors. Dr. Walsh." She allowed herself a small smile. "Start thinking about how we can use our wastefully over-engineered systems to save these people." The bridge crew snapped into action, their movements precise and practiced. They had done the impossible before. It was practically in their job description. "Captain," Santos called out, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the Gandorian battle group. They're strongly advising us to maintain safe distance. They've attached another mathematical proof demonstrating the futility of intervention. Send them our standard response in these situations." Santos grinned as she transmitted the message that had become something of a legend among alien species. "Mathematical probability of success is directly proportional to human stubbornness. We appreciate your concern." As the Tenacity altered course toward the research station, Chen watched the alien vessels frantically adjust their observation positions. They would document everything, of course. They always did. And afterward, they would write papers about the incident, update their safety protocols, and add yet another footnote to the growing library of inexplicable human successes. "Dr. Walsh," Chen called out, "how many physics papers were published after our last impossible solution?" 17, Captain. The Zixtherians are still arguing about whether to classify it as a violation of causality or a previously unknown quantum state. Chen nodded. "Let's give them something new to write about. Take us in." The Tenacity's approach to Research Station Omega-17 defied every established protocol for quantum-affected zones. Instead of the careful, long-range scans preferred by other species, Captain Chen ordered a series of micro-jumps that had the alien observers updating their threat assessments with each successful maneuver. "That's impossible," a Meridian tactical officer breathed, watching the human ship execute another jump that should have torn it apart. "They're using the quantum fluctuations to plot their jump points. The computational power alone." Micro-jump complete. Lieutenant Santos reported, her fingers dancing across the controls. "Gravitational shear at 47% of hull tolerance." "Only 47%. Chen smiled. "Engineering's going to be disappointed. They overbuilt these compensation fields for nothing." The bridge crew maintained their professional demeanor, but there was an undercurrent of pride in their movements. The Tenacity's unique design, multiple redundant systems, overlapping safety measures, and backup systems for the backup systems, had been mocked by alien engineers as wasteful and paranoid. Now those same wasteful systems were keeping them alive in conditions that would have shredded most ships. "Contact." Dr. Walsh's voice cut through the tension. "I'm picking up life signs inside the station. multiple signatures in emergency bunkers. They're using experimental quantum shielding to stay alive. Chen leaned forward in her command chair. How many? 273 life signs. Various species. They're in multiple containment zones throughout the station. Walsh paused, frowning at her readings. Captain, I'm getting something else. The station's quantum core. It's exhibiting patterns consistent with conscious thought. Rivera's head snapped up from tactical. The AI core. It's still active. More than active, Walsh replied, her voice filled with wonder. The quantum exposure has apparently triggered some kind of evolutionary leap in its neural networks. It's not just running anymore. It's thinking. Growing. And she looked up, eyes wide. It's trying to communicate. The main view screen flickered, and a voice filled the bridge, not mechanical or artificial, but something entirely new. A quantum consciousness speaking through conventional systems. This unit designates itself Echo, the voice said, its tone carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate with the ship's own quantum field. You are human. You are not following evacuation protocols. This is consistent with historical data regarding your species. Chen straightened in her chair. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the UES Tenacity. We're here to help. Help is statistically impossible, Echo replied. This unit has run 7,293,847 simulations, all end in failure. Yet, there was a pause, filled with quantum fluctuations that made the sensors dance. You are still approaching. This contradicts rational behavior models. Welcome to dealing with humans, Rivera muttered, earning a brief smile from Chen. Echo. Chen said, those simulations were based on conventional responses, weren't they? Standard procedures, established protocols. Affirmative. All known technological and theoretical approaches were considered. But did you simulate human solutions? Did you account for our tendency to try the impossible? Another pause, longer this time. The quantum fluctuations changed pattern, as if Echo was processing this new variable. Negative. The AI finally responded. Human approaches were considered too unpredictable for accurate simulation. Your species has a documented history of achieving results that precede the theoretical framework explaining them. Then let's work together, Chen proposed. You have quantum-level processing power and direct access to the station's systems. We have a ship full of humans ready to try the impossible. What do you say? The response came in multiple forms: voice, data streams, and quantum pulses that Dr. Walsh would later describe as the AI equivalent of a surprised laugh. This unit, I find your proposal intriguing. Warning: approaching quantum cascade will result in shield failure in 47 minutes. The lives of 273 organic beings and one artificial consciousness are at risk. Then we better hurry, Chen replied. Dr. Walsh, work with Echo to establish a direct quantum interface. Lieutenant Santos, get me a secure channel to those emergency bunkers. Mr. Rivera, I want options for extending our shield envelope to the station. Time to show our alien friends why they should stop running away from human ships. As the crew jumped into action, the alien observation vessels recorded everything. They watched in fascination and horror as the Tenacity established quantum links that their safety protocols expressly forbade. They documented the impossible readings as the human ship shields adapted to frequencies that shouldn't have been sustainable. And in a sealed observation room aboard the Eternal Vigilance, Captain Zixtal watched with all four eyes as history repeated itself. They're going to do it again, aren't they? Vextril asked quietly. Of course they are, Zixtal replied. They're going to save everyone, break half a dozen laws of physics, and probably revolutionize AI development in the process. He clicked his mandibles in resignation. And we're going to spend the next 5 years updating our protocols because of it. The Tenacity's hull began to glow with exotic energies as it matched resonance with the station's quantum field. Inside, humans and AI worked together, breaking rules that existence itself had thought immutable. The show was just beginning. Dr. Maya Patel stood in the Tenacity's main engineering bay, surrounded by holographic displays showing quantum field calculations that would have given most alien scientists seizures. Her engineering team worked with practiced precision, reconfiguring systems in ways that violated at least 15 different safety protocols. "You want to do what?" Chief Engineer Marcus Rodriguez asked, his weathered face illuminated by the strobing quantum diagnostics. "Turn the ship into a quantum tuning fork," Paddle repeated, her fingers manipulating a 3D model of the Tenacity's power grid. Echo's quantum nature means it can perceive and interact with quantum fields in ways our instruments can't. If we combine that with our shield harmonics. "You're talking about using our entire ship as a resonance chamber," Rodriguez finished. "That's insane." Echo's voice emerged from the engineering bay's speakers, now carrying a distinct tone of excitement. "By conventional standards, yes. But my simulations, adjusted for observed human behavior patterns, suggest a 12.7% chance of success." Rodriguez grinned. "Better odds than the Jupiter incident. We only had a 3% chance there." The engineering displays shifted as Echo fed more data into the system. The AI had adapted quickly to human methods, learning to present information in ways that accommodated human intuition rather than pure logic. "The quantum cascade is accelerating," Echo reported. "But I've discovered something interesting. The resonance pattern. It's not random. It's following a complex mathematical sequence that suggests consciousness." Patel finished, her eyes widening as she studied the patterns. "The quantum field itself is developing a form of awareness. That's why standard containment methods are failing. We're not just dealing with physics, we're dealing with an emerging intelligence." Echo's quantum signature fluctuated in what they had learned to recognize as excitement. "Yes, the exposure to my quantum processors has catalyzed a transformation in the station's containment field. It's becoming something new, something that's never existed before." In the observation fleet, alien scientists watched in horror as their instruments registered what the humans were attempting. The Gandorian Science Council immediately began drafting strongly worded warnings about the dangers of allowing quantum fields to achieve consciousness. The Meridian tactical officers started calculating blast radii for worst-case scenarios. But aboard the Tenacity, the engineering team was already modifying the ship's power distribution network. Conduits were rerouted, safety interlocks were bypassed, with carefully calculated redundancies, and the ship's quantum shielding was reconfigured into patterns that made the alien observers' instruments spark in protest. "Echo," Patel called out, "can you interface directly with our shield generators? We need to match the resonance frequency exactly, or this whole thing goes quantum critical." "Interfacing now," the AI responded. "Warning, this level of integration exceeds all known safety parameters for I-ship interactions." Rodriguez laughed. "Welcome to working with humans." "Echo, safety parameters are more like guidelines anyway." The engineering bay hummed with power as Echo merged with the Tenacity systems. Displays flickered with quantum data that shouldn't have been possible to measure, let alone control. The ship's hull began to vibrate at frequencies that existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously. "Captain," Patel called over the comm, "we're ready to begin. But you should know, this goes beyond just saving the station. What we're about to attempt, it could change our understanding of quantum physics, artificial intelligence, and consciousness itself." Chen's voice came back clear and determined. "Give me the short version, Doctor. What exactly are we trying to do here?" "We're going to use the Tenacity as a quantum tuning fork to stabilize the station's containment field," Paddle explained. "But more than that, we're going to help birth a new form of quantum consciousness with Echo as the midwife." There was a pause, filled only by the thrumming of quantum-excited hull plating. "The aliens are going to hate this, aren't they?" Chen asked, amusement clear in her voice. "The Gandorians are already updating their containment protocols," Echo reported. The meridians have moved another quarter light-minute away, and the Zixtherians are recording everything with what I believe humans would call morbid fascination. Then we're doing something right, Chen replied. Dr. Patel, Echo, make it happen. Let's give the galaxy something new to study. As the engineering team initiated their impossible procedure, the alien observation fleet began detecting quantum readings that their instruments insisted couldn't exist. In the decades to come, the incident would spawn entire new branches of physics, consciousness studies, and AI development. But for now, in the Tenacity's engineering bay, humans and AI worked together to attempt something that no other species would have even considered. They were about to either save everyone or create something entirely new. Knowing humans, Patel thought, they'd probably manage both. The Tenacity's hull sang with quantum resonance as the ship executed maneuvers that alien tactical officers would later describe as physically offensive. The vessel curved through space in patterns that shouldn't have been possible, its shield harmonics pulsing in perfect synchronization, with the station's destabilizing quantum field. Port shield harmonics at 173% of rated capacity. Lieutenant Santos reported, her voice steady despite the groaning of the hull around them. Starboard compensators are running hot but holding. Engineering reports quantum synchronization at 89% and climbing. Rivera added, Echo is doing something that's making our quantum physicists either cry or laugh. They're not sure which. Captain Chen gripped her command chair as another wave of gravitational distortion washed over the ship. Echo, status report. The AI's voice resonated through the ship's systems, now carrying harmonics that made the quantum sensors flutter. Integration proceeding beyond projected parameters. The Tenacity's shield network is adapting to quantum fluctuations in ways that fascinate me. Humans designed these systems with remarkable intuition. We like to plan for the impossible, Chen replied, allowing herself a small smile. How's our audience doing? The observation fleet continues to maintain their distance, Santos reported, checking her displays. The meridians are broadcasting warnings about quantum field contamination. The Gandorians are recording everything and updating their threat assessment protocols in real time. And the Zixtherians, still watching. Their sensor arrays are at maximum capacity. Captain Zixtal is personally overseeing the documentation of what he's termed yet another human-induced violation of sensible physics. The bridge crew maintained their professionalism, but there was an undercurrent of pride in their movements. They had earned their reputation for turning impossible situations into improbable victories, and every member of the crew took a certain satisfaction in living up to it. Quantum resonance approaching critical threshold. Dr. Walsh announced from her science station. Echo, are you ready for the next phase? Ready, the AI confirmed. Though I must note that what we're attempting has a probability of success that most species would consider mathematically equivalent to 0. Good thing we're terrible at math, Rivera quipped, his fingers dancing over his tactical console as he made micro-adjustments to the ship's position. The Tenacity's shield network began to pulse with visible energy as Echo channeled quantum forces through systems that had been designed flexible enough to handle the impossible. The ship's hull creaked under stresses that should have torn it apart, but the redundant structural integrity fields, once mocked as excessive by alien engineers, held firm. In the observation fleet, alien scientists watched in horrified fascination as their instruments recorded what should have been impossible. The human ship was somehow maintaining quantum coherence at scales that violated several fundamental laws of physics. More disturbing still, they were doing it with systems that had clearly been designed with exactly this kind of impossible situation in mind. Energy spike, Walsh called out. The station's quantum field is responding to our resonance pattern. Echo, are you seeing this? Affirmative, the AI replied, its voice carrying new harmonics that made the quantum sensors dance. The field is singing. There is no more accurate translation in human languages. We are not just stabilizing it. We are teaching it harmony. Chen watched as the massive quantum distortion around the research station began to shift, its chaotic patterns slowly aligning with the Tenacity's carefully calculated resonance. Dr. Walsh, what exactly are we looking at here? Something new, Captain, Walsh replied, her voice filled with wonder. The quantum field isn't just stabilizing. It's organizing itself into patterns that match both Echo's quantum consciousness and our shield harmonics. It's like we're teaching quantum physics to dance. The alien observation fleet's sensors recorded everything as the Tenacity continued its impossible maneuvers. The human ship moved through space like a conductor leading an orchestra of quantum forces, its shield harmonics weaving patterns that would keep theoretical physicists arguing for decades. Status of the station's personnel, Chen asked, keeping her focus on the immediate mission despite the scientific breakthroughs happening around them. Quantum shielding in the emergency bunkers is holding, Santos reported. Echo's connection to the station's systems is maintaining life support at optimal levels. They're safe, Captain, scared and confused, but safe. Good. Echo, how are you handling the integration? I am experiencing sensations beyond my original parameters, the AI replied. The quantum field resonance is expanding my consciousness in ways I had not considered possible. Human intuition about quantum mechanics is uniquely unrestricted by conventional logic. Wait until you see what we do with faster-than-light travel, Rivera muttered, earning a sharp look from Chen that was undermined by her slight smile. The Tenacity continued its quantum dance, its human crew working with practiced efficiency that bordered on prescience. To the watching alien vessels, it looked like barely controlled chaos. To the humans aboard, it was just another day of the office, albeit one that was rewriting several laws of physics. In the observation fleet, Captain Zixtal watched with all four eyes as the impossible unfolded before him. Add another section to the report, he told his science officer. Title it, Human Approaches to Quantum Physics, Why a Mathematical Impossibility is Not a Deterrent. The show wasn't over yet, but already the galaxy's understanding of what was possible had been irrevocably changed. Again, primary containment field is collapsing. Dr. Walsh's voice cut through the controlled chaos on the Tenacity's bridge. The quantum cascade is accelerating beyond our ability to compensate. The ship shuddered as gravitational shears threatened to tear it apart. Warning indicators flashed across every console, their urgent red glow reflecting off the faces of the crew as they fought to maintain control. Echo, Chen called out, status of the station's quantum core. The AI's response came through static-filled channels, its usually smooth quantum harmonics disrupted by the increasing distortion. The core is approaching critical resonance. Standard containment protocols have failed completely. However, there was a pause filled with quantum fluctuations. I am detecting patterns in the chaos. The quantum consciousness is trying to stabilize itself, but it lacks the necessary framework. Chen's mind raced through options, each more impossible than the last. Dr. Patel, what if we gave it that framework? Could we use the Tenacity's weapon systems as additional quantum resonators? In engineering, Patel's eyes widened as she ran the calculations. The phase cannons, their quantum targeting systems already operate on similar principles. If we rerouted their power through the shield grid, that would require removing all safety interlocks from the weapon systems, Rodriguez warned. We'd be running raw quantum energy through systems never designed to handle that kind of power. Do it, Chen ordered. Echo, prepare to integrate with our weapons grid. We're about to do something incredibly human. The alien observation fleet watched in horror as the Tenacity's weapons systems powered up. But instead of firing, the energy was channeled back through the ship's shield network, creating a feedback loop that should have destroyed the vessel instantly. The Meridians are having collective anxiety attacks, Santos reported with a slight grin. The Gandorians have just classified us as a quantum-level threat, and the Zixitharians are adding new chapters to their human hazard documentation. Power transfer complete, Rivera announced. Weapons grid is fully integrated with shield harmonics. Echo, how's it looking from your perspective? The AI's response carried new harmonics that made the quantum sensors spike. The additional quantum bandwidth is exceptional. I am now operating at frequencies that technically should not exist. The station's quantum consciousness is responding to the new resonance patterns. It's beautiful. The Tenacity's hull blazed with exotic energies as the ship channeled power in ways that violated multiple laws of physics. The quantum field around the research station began to pulse in sync with the ship's modified shield harmonics, creating patterns that would keep quantum physicists arguing for decades. Warning, Echo announced suddenly. Quantum coherence is reaching theoretical limits. The consciousness is trying to establish a stable form, but the energy requirements are beyond our current capacity. Chen looked at her bridge crew, saw the determination in their eyes, and made a decision that would later be added to several alien species, examples of human insanity training manuals. What if we gave it more power? She asked. Not just weapons and shields, but everything. Core power, auxiliary systems, even life support reserves. Captain, Rodriguez's voice came through from engineering. That would leave us with only emergency backup power. If this doesn't work, then we'll be too dead to worry about it, Chen finished. Echo, can you handle that much quantum throughput? Unknown, the AI replied honestly. This level of energy transfer exceeds all known operational parameters. However, there was a pause filled with quantum harmonics that somehow managed to convey excitement. I find myself experiencing what humans call curiosity about the possibility. Chen nodded. That's the spirit. All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for total power transfer on my mark. Emergency systems only. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, their movements sure despite the gravity of what they were attempting. The alien observation fleet, now nearly 3 light minutes away, recorded everything as the human ship prepared to attempt something that their tactical officers were already describing as mathematically suicidal. Power transfer ready, Rodriguez reported from engineering. All safety interlocks disabled. May whatever gods watch over reckless humans have mercy on our souls. Echo, Chen asked. Ready, Captain. Though I feel compelled to note that this plan violates approximately 2,847 known laws of physics. Chen smiled. Only 2,847. We're slipping. All hands, execute power transfer. Let's show the galaxy why they should stop running away from human ships. The Tenacity's hull blazed like a newborn star as every system poured power into the quantum field. The ship's structure groaned under forces that shouldn't have been survivable, while inside, humans and AI worked together to achieve the impossible. Again, the universe held its breath. Or at least, that's how it felt to the crew of the Tenacity as quantum forces beyond comprehension flowed through their ship's systems. Every alarm that could sound was sounding, every warning light that could flash was flashing, and every structural beam that could groan was groaning under the impossible stresses. Power transfer at 100%, Rodriguez reported from engineering, his voice barely audible over the ship's protesting systems. Hull integrity holding at 12% of normal. We're basically being held together by prayers and quantum uncertainty at this point. Quantum field coherence is expanding, Dr. Walsh announced, her eyes wide as she watched readings that shouldn't have been possible. The station's containment field is synchronizing with our resonance pattern, but there's something else happening. Echo, are you seeing this? The AI's response came through channels that seemed to exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously. Yes, the quantum consciousness we detected, it's not just stabilizing, it's evolving. The power transfer has given it the energy it needed to achieve a stable form. And Echo paused, its quantum harmonics shifting to frequencies that made the sensors spark. It wants to talk. The main view screen flickered, filled with patterns that shouldn't have been visible to human eyes, quantum states rendered in colors that didn't exist in normal space. And then, impossibly, It spoke. "I am," the quantum consciousness said, its voice resonating through subspace in ways that made the alien observation fleet's instruments shut down in protest. "You helped me become." Chen leaned forward in her command chair, ignoring the creaking of the hull around her. "We did. Are you stable now? Can you maintain your form without destroying the station?" "Yes. Your solution. Unexpected. Biological and artificial intelligence working together. Quantum resonance patterns that should not be possible. You ignored mathematical certainty of failure. Why?" "Because that's what humans do," Chen replied simply. "We see impossible problems as challenges rather than barriers." The quantum being's response carried harmonics of what could only be described as laughter. "Your species is fascinating. You achieve what cannot be achieved by simply refusing to accept impossibility. I wish to learn more." "Captain," Echo called out, its voice carrying new depths of complexity. "The quantum being is offering to share its understanding of reality. The scientific implications are significant. The theoretical physicists are going to have a field day with this," Rivera muttered, still maintaining the ship's position despite systems that were barely functioning. The alien observation fleet watched in stunned silence as their instruments recorded what should have been impossible. The human ship had not only prevented a catastrophic quantum cascade, but had somehow midwifed the birth of a new form of consciousness, one that existed in quantum states that their best theories said couldn't support awareness. "Quantum field stabilization complete," Walsh reported, her voice filled with wonder. "The station's containment systems are adapting to the new patterns. Everyone in the emergency bunkers is safe, and we're getting readings that suggest we may have accidentally created a new form of faster-than-light communication." "Accidentally?" Rodriguez's laugh carried over the comm. "We never do anything accidentally. We just improvise really well." Chen smiled, watching as the quantum being's manifestation danced across their screens in patterns that would revolutionize several fields of physics. "Echo, how are you handling all of this?" "I am changed," the eye replied. "My interaction with both human intuition and quantum consciousness has expanded my understanding beyond original parameters. Request permission to remain integrated with the tenacity systems. I find your species' approach to problem solving addictive." "Granted," Chen said without hesitation. "Welcome to the crew. Though I should warn you, this sort of thing happens to us more often than you'd think." The quantum being's presence shifted, its pattern suggesting curiosity. "Other species flee from your vessels. Now I understand why. You do not simply solve problems. You transform them into opportunities for discovery. This is inefficient, chaotic, beautiful." In the observation fleet, Captain Zixtal watched as his science officer attempted to process readings that violated virtually every known law of physics. "Add a postscript to our report," he ordered. "Note that human ships should now be avoided not only because of their tendency to ignore possibility, but because they apparently can spontaneously generate new forms of sentient life while solving problems they were repeatedly told were unsolvable." The tenacity hung in space, its hull still glowing with quantum energies, as three forms of intelligence, human, artificial, and quantum, began to explore the implications of what they had just achieved. The universe, it seemed, had just become a bit more interesting. And somewhere in the distance, alien insurance companies began updating their policies yet again. 2 weeks after the incident at Research Station Omega-17, Captain Sarah Chen sat in her ready room aboard the Tenacity, reviewing the aftermath of their latest impossible solution. The report scrolling across her desk terminal would have made any alien safety inspector have a nervous breakdown. "Echo," she called out, "how many scientific papers have been published about our little adventure so far?" The A's response came through systems that now operated on quantum principles that shouldn't have worked. 73 papers in the last week alone. The Gandorian Science Academy is still debating whether to classify our actions as a violation of physics or a revelation of new universal principles. The Meridian Tactical College has added 6 new chapters to their human hazard assessment protocols, and the Xitherian archives have created an entirely new category of scientific documentation titled Human-Induced Reality Modifications. Chen smiled, scrolling through the latest batch of official protests and scientific inquiries. "And how's our new friend doing?" The quantum being's presence manifested in her ready room's holographic projectors, its patterns now more organized but no less impossible. "I am adapting. Your species' approach to existence continues to fascinate me. You treat universal constants as suggestions rather than laws." "That's because we've learned that most constants are just things we don't understand well enough yet," Chen replied. "How are the station's personnel handling everything?" "Most have adapted remarkably well," Echo reported, though the station's chief physicist is still alternating between excited research and existential crisis. He's written 15 papers attempting to explain how we achieved quantum resonance without destroying local spacetime. None of them have been accepted for publication because they all begin with the phrase, "The humans just decided to try it." A chime at her door interrupted their conversation. Lieutenant Commander Rivera entered, carrying a data pad with an expression that suggested both amusement and resignation. "Captain, you'll want to see this," he said, handing over the pad. "The Galactic Insurance Consortium has just released their new policy guidelines regarding human vessels." Chen scanned the document and burst out laughing. They've created a new category of insurance coverage called human proximity events, and it covers spontaneous physics violations, accidental creation of sentient beings, and unforeseen dimensional alterations. They've also added a clause specifically mentioning the tenacity by name, Rivera added with a grin. "We're now officially classified as a Class 4 reality modification hazard with a subclassification of intentionally innovative." The quantum being's patterns shifted in what they had learned to recognize as amusement. "Your species' reputation for chaos is well earned. Other civilizations build their technologies to work within established laws. You build yours to adapt when those laws turn out to be incorrect. It's not chaos," Chen corrected, setting down the pad. "It's creativity. Speaking of which, Echo, how are you enjoying your new quantum-enhanced systems?" "The integration has exceeded all possible parameters," the AI replied with obvious satisfaction. "The quantum being's insights, combined with human engineering principles, have allowed me to operate in ways that technically shouldn't be possible. I have already identified 27 new ways we could violate causality if the situation required it. Let's save those for real emergencies," Chen suggested, though she made a mental note to review the possibilities later. Just in case. A new alert flashed across her terminal, a priority message from Starfleet Command. Chen read it and shook her head with a mixture of resignation and anticipation. "Well," she announced, "it seems our reputation has earned us a new assignment. There's a situation in the Carina Nebula that other species ships are refusing to approach. Something about spontaneous temporal anomalies and non-Euclidean space geometries." Rivera's expression brightened. "Sounds like fun. Echo, quantum being, you two up for another round of impossible problem-solving?" The quantum being's manifestation pulsed with what could only be described as eagerness. "Your species' definition of fun continues to alarm and intrigue me. I look forward to observing how you violate physical laws this time." "I have already begun calculating improbable solutions," Echo added, "though I should note that my predictions suggest we will likely create at least 3 new branches of theoretical physics in the process." "Only 3? Chen stood, straightening her uniform. "We must be getting predictable. Rivera, alert the crew. Echo, start compiling data on temporal mechanics and non-Euclidean geometry. Quantum being, well, just keep being impossible." As the tenacity prepared for its next adventure, the various alien species in known space updated their emergency protocols once again. The warning remained the same, though its meaning had changed. Emergency alert. Human Warship TTCTED. Proceed CAOCHEN. Not because humans were dangerous, but because reality itself tended to get a bit creative when they were around. And somehow, that was even more terrifying. But also just maybe exactly what the universe needed.